All right. NSC Fan TV, I'm here with John. John is a professor of communication studies here at Vanderbilt. And John has all sorts of opinions to share with us. It's kind of a season in review, right, friend?
Yep.
So let's start with really with the Nashville's arc into the playoffs. What are some takeaways from this season that you've seen?
Well, so I'm going to say some things that I think are fairly predictable, but I want to say it anyway because they're part of the conversation that's been going on all year about Nashville SC. And so one of the critiques that was made often is that Gary plays for draws, that we're not trying to win enough, and if we'd won more, we'd have ended up in second place. Yada yada yada. I want to bring this up because I think there's a distinction between playing for draws and draws happening, and I don't think this team played for draws. I think Gary went out, and you might not like his tactics. You might say, I don't like these strategies. I think he went out to win every game. I don't think he ever said, let's go for a draw. Draws are good. And we'll talk later about this class I teach, but Mike Jacobs was a guest in our class, and he told me on the side, every game Gary is mad if he doesn't win. He wants the team to win. So okay. I think one of the narratives I don't like that went on this year was that we play for draws. I think this team, you or I, if we were managers, not me because I'd be a terrible manager, but if you were a manager, you might play more aggressively, right? You might draw, you might lose more often, you might gamble more. I'm just
I grew up watching the Italian game.
Yeah, okay, well, you've been setting up chains everywhere.
Yeah, that's exactly. So, 5 in the back.
Yeah. So what I want to say is I think this team this team clearly did remarkably well at not losing. Yeah. I do want to see us take this and move forward. I'd like to see fewer draws. I'd like to see more victories. The more victories we have, the more we're used to winning, the more we go forward on the road, etc. Because when we got to the playoffs, I was worried about what would happen. What would happen? We can't draw, right?
It's not going to be a draw.
You can't have a draw. But I don't think he plays for draws. I just want to say I want to correct that narrative. I want to say if you want a more aggressive team, that's fine. I don't think this manager is playing for draws.
But I think that a more aggressive team comes with certain kinds of costs. It's like, that's exactly. Some kinds of risks, maybe not costs all the time. But one of them is that, look, a regular narrative on this channel has been the MLS has got 2 races. You've got the race for the community, the supporter shield, and then you've got a race for the playoffs, which is a mid-table race.
Yes. And
mid-table races are very forgiving of draws. If it's only a top-table race, draws are costly. Right. But if you're
this goes all the way. This goes pretty far down.
Yeah, if it goes as far down as 7th, draws are not quite as costly, and in fact are beneficial. And so I'm not somebody who criticizes. I'm not someone who criticizes the draw strategy.
Ultimately, supporter shield. I wish it meant more. It doesn't. We remember the champions, right?
We remember cup champions. Yeah, we don't remember. Yeah, and that's a flip with another league because you have the FA Cup.
Yeah,
and you've got the League Cup or the League Champions, and the League Champions are the ones that are.
Yeah, and I wish that was the case. MLS is not structured in a way that works. And to be honest, the playoffs are fun.
Yeah, playoffs are. I'm completely with you there. I think the playoffs are fun, and so the MLS Cup is the more compelling narrative because it's an ongoing one.
Oh yeah.
And because it also has head-to-head matches, whereas like you can have a league champion win on an away field and number 2 be across the country looking on.
But what else could happen? The weirdest thing could happen in playoffs. So who saw what happened to Philadelphia? The COVID cases.
Right. So crazy. So let's talk about so we've kind of touched on the draw issue.
Yeah.
And we've touched on some of the structural things about the draw issue that in some ways I don't call it really an issue. It's just a matter for
I like the way you're putting it. This mid-table competition for the cup that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So but let's talk about the playoffs now that NSC is out. And so you were talking about the Philly. I have been complaining about the quality of play in the Cup, especially on both sides, both in the West and in the East, because both games looked like mid-table games, getting ground out at the end of August. All the teams looked tired, and all the teams looked deeply depleted. Clearly, with Philadelphia, they had like 10 people out for the. And New York New York looked like a team without Castellanos. That was a team without a purpose. Maxi Morales is a good player, and he took charge of that team. But if they don't have somebody in the front, that team doesn't know what to do. That is a team without a star and a team without a North Star. If you know what I mean?
Yeah. I only watched them. I was talking to a friend last night. I only watched them 4 times this season, but the playoff game was the worst. This playoff game was the worst I've ever seen them play.
They looked terrible.
They looked terrible. They looked better losing to us than they looked last night.
That's right. That's true. It's true. That was so the MLS product in the playoff for the conference championships was pretty garbage.
Well, no, wait, I want to talk about this. Going to the West, you thought Portland looked like garbage?
I thought Portland did not look good at all.
I thought they looked good. Yeah,
so the Chara brothers look awesome. It looks like there are 5 of them out there. But look, without Blanco and without Asprilla, that was again another team that just had no development. They were lucky they were playing against arguably a mid-table team in RSL, who's really only got one good player, which is Krylock up front, and their villain of a goalkeeper and Ochoa. But look, I mean that was a team that just sort of cynically played their way through the playoffs, and they finally got exposed by a team that was just playing mediocre soccer.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
I think Portland is playing the best soccer they've played all season right now.
They'll get better.
No,
They're better.
You're going to use
up.
that as a way of saying
they'll get better. They're going to get better. saying they're playing their best game is still not going to be that.
They've been to me they were the most inconsistent team that made the playoffs this year.
Portland.
I can't. It's unfathomable to me that they are hosting the final.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a cool looking stadium, so I totally like that.
Well, so I don't know if you've been out there to watch before, but 6-7 years ago, before teams like Atlanta joined the league, etc., everybody would talk about Seattle and Portland, Vancouver as the third, as the places to go for. They were always one of the third place to go for big soccer culture. And I don't know if you were watching the New York game, the New York Philly game. At halftime, they were talking about how this was going to be a great showcase for what MLS fan culture can look like. And I'm interested in seeing if that's the case. I think we've got enough teams now that do it.
I'm keen to see
Portland does it a little differently.
Yeah.
One of my friends who lives in Portland says the playoff game was the loudest they've been in years. So,
wow. Well, I like it. I mean, and all the sort of the pageantry around that Portland game with sort of the victory log getting sawed. That's just awesome. So there's something that's easy to romanticize about that stadium and
it's fun to be out there. That's where I fell in love with soccer. I tell the story all the time. Right? Was back when they were a USL team. I was out. I don't know, over a decade ago, and I didn't really like soccer until then. But that crowd, the crowd convinced me. Not the game. I still thought the game was boring at that point. But I did. I didn't grow up a soccer fan. I'll tell you.
I like singing.
I've told you this story before. I used to say the only way to make this game interesting is to give them guns. It's like a Southerners thing to say, right? And then the culture got me into it. And then as the game has unfolded, and I fell in love with the game, I no longer want to be in the supporter section, but I like to watch.
Yeah,
I like that they're there, but I want to watch the game now. But yes, Portland's going to be a great showcase. I actually think they've been playing well. I think this is Portland's to lose this final.
Wow,
I don't see New York winning.
Okay, so
you do.
So I do. I think that Castellanos is coming back. He's just such a classy striker. He's going to find a way to put in a brace.
Hard place to win, Portland. Yeah. We'll see.
It's true.
We'll see.
Okay, so we've talked about the playoffs and the culmination. Let's talk a little bit about the fact that you are teaching a class here at Vanderbilt on soccer, one of the Vanderbilt immersion courses. So tell us about what the setup with that is.
So we started this when Vanderbilt started immersion as I'm a little lost now because of the pandemic.
When did we really start immersion?
Or have we started it yet?
I think it's an hour requirement.
Okay, so students have to do an immersion project by the time they graduate. And it's sort of like if you're at some schools, it would be an honors thesis.
Or
here
capstone,
you have to, capstone type of project, deep project. And Lutz Kopnick, who teaches in the German department, came to me and he'd gotten this thing. It sounds like a scam, but it's not. There's a number of grants that were given to Vanderbilt to encourage students to do immersion projects, right? So he came to me and he wanted to teach a course on soccer culture, and he wanted to team teach it. And he'd gotten somebody to take 6 students for 2 different years to London to look at, to go to games, to go to the National Football Museum, to look at stadiums, etc.
To eat all of the fish and chips.
Well, yes. Although we actually do a lot of. We have to get an Airbnb. It's like mom and pop get up and make all the breakfast.
Oh, okay.
All
right.
It's a fun little thing.
Full English with mom and pop.
He came to me with this idea, and we talked about what the course would be, and the course has become a course about. I want to say soccer and cultural studies is what I'd say. So soccer, politics, and culture. And I think the title might have art in it. I can't remember. It doesn't really matter, right? We've taught it twice now. We have units on nationalism in soccer. Hooliganism in soccer, but then we have gender, sexuality. We do units on statistics and different types of analyses. So the course tries to cover an array of aspects of. It does everything except for tactics and strategy, right? It's not a course. It's a course about what goes on around soccer.
I see.
More than it is.
And so they don't have. So you don't have like a whole day devoted to the Messi Ronaldo debate.
No, although we do open up class every week, every day saying. So, if there's anything about soccer you want to talk about, and there's 100. We have 100 students in the class right now. There's always people who are deeply invested in their teams or that debate or
that debate.
Yes, so that goes on.
So I have a question about something that emerged. You and I were talking informally about this, and you had mentioned that we have a bunch of folks who are living here and are more invested in teams across the pond.
Oh yeah,
that they're bigger followers of Bayern or Chelsea or something like that than the team that's playing just down the road.
Yes. How about you?
How about that? What's up with that?
How about you, though? So I'll talk about that.
Okay,
Is that the case with you?
So I followed the National Soccer Club when it was a USL team here, and occasionally made it to games and things like that, and watched those games. National had a team before that, years before that, and I didn't make it to any of those games. The Metro, there we are. Right. And never went to any of those games. I did. I, however, was an avid follower of the English Premier League. I'm a gunner. I follow Arsenal pretty closely, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that I was an American showing up in London, had budgeted to buy a ticket and watched an Arsenal game, and
you were just going to go see any game.
I was there to see really any game.
Yeah, right.
And I got a ticket. It's 15-year-old me. My folks said, "Okay, look, you can do that."
This is before the new stadium too.
Yeah,
right?
it's before the new stadium, and saw Arsenal.
That was supposed to be a great experience.
Saw Arsenal and tried to learn a song and things like that.
Yeah.
I decided I went back to London with my youngest. And I didn't want to go to an EPL game.
Yep.
I went and saw Millwall with my youngest
That's what everybody talks about wanting to do that.
I went to Millwall. I've even got a Millwall scarf. Give me 1 second. I've got a Millwall scarf. Oh no, it went home with me. I had a Millwall scarf in my office.
Well, I was worried you were going to bring it over here and then hit me.
Nobody likes us. We don't care. But I liked how together it was. And I really, really just enjoyed watching the game. And I was a fan of. I'd seen Arshavin play in the European Championships. And I thought he was such a great player, and got to see him play there at Arsenal. And then because NBC carries all these games, and you can catch them. The EPL is just very easy to watch.
So what the question I was trying to ask is, because I'll answer this for myself in just a second, but so what is your love? Is your love Arsenal? Is your love the team here in town?
My love is this team.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so I have Drew, who also is on this channel. He's also a gunner.
Yeah.
And we've regularly said, look, if the two of us showed up in London, we'd just be Americans in a red shirt.
Yeah.
I'd just be for as much I followed this team for a long time. I know a lot of the players, but that team is one. There's look, if I show up in London, I'm just an American in a red shirt. Here, I'm a proper fan, and I love this. I just love this team. I can't get enough of them. I started a channel. I talk about them all the time. Just love this team, and I feel connected to them. I feel so. some of it's just sort of the organicity of them being proximate to me.
Yeah.
They're just here.
So I'll tell you a little bit about my connection, because I think about this a lot. I write about the sort of what Simon Christian calls ecstatic, the ecstatic sensate ecstasy that you have as a soccer fan. You sort of get lost in the crowd. I mean, it's amazing. I've never seen fanship like it, right? So I think a lot about this. My first love, to be like I said, the first games I liked were Portland, and I was a Portland fan before there was a Nashville, right? Back when there were still the Metros, and they were USL, so I don't feel bad at all about that history. U.S. team I started liking, but that was all based on chants and crowds, etc. And then, over a decade ago, I was just watching. This is before NBC had all the games, but there were games on, and I didn't know what the hell I was watching. A friend of mine said, "Watch the Premier League; it's good." He said, "I'm a Manchester City fan." I thought, "Okay, I'll try to watch."
That's
Manchester
a watchable
City.
team.
I know, but I thought, well, I'll watch that, and that's not what happened. I can't explain. I could give you theories about why, but for whatever reason, and here's my theory. I really fell in love with watching Drogba and John Terry, who never seemed to ever want to lose a game. I mean, this is.
Didier Drogba was a lovable player.
Oh, yeah. I mean, every game I watched, they were just fighting. And,
Was this with Mourinho in charge, too?
Yeah, the first time.
It's a compelling coach,
yeah, the
too.
first go around. So I really fell in love with them before they won Champions League for the first time. Even though when they won it, I still didn't understand. I'm glad they won it again, because I didn't really understand.
To appreciate what that
anyway,
was. Yeah.
So that was my love. I've got a Chelsea tattoo. I'm just sort of like, that's my investment, my identity. You can't see it. It's right here.
It's right here.
Right here.
It's where the badge goes.
It is. And it is.
Where's your in? Where your in is going to have to go somewhere.
So, and I went, while I was getting into this, I started going to the Metros, right? Although it seemed to me like, well, this is just play. This isn't serious. And then the Metros fell apart. And then when Chris Jones wanted to start Nashville Football Club, the team this has become, the NPSL team, and if one of my friends sees this, they're gonna make fun of me. But I met him on Twitter when he first came out with the idea. Paid my dues. I was member number 3. I still have the card. So I've been a Nashville fan. I've been a Nashville fan since the beginning. I was at all the games the first season when they were in NPSL. So I've been a fan forever, right? Started writing news stories for Broadway Sports through Ben, etc., Speedway Soccer. So I'm invested in the way that you are, and yet I lose sleep about Chelsea. I don't lose sleep about Nashville. And I can't I don't know what I don't know what the difference is. I can't describe it. It's
not Rebecca Lowe. Like, do we just need Rebecca Lowe?
No. I don't know why. I wish I could describe it. I ask people all the time, and no one has ever told me I'm equal on both. I mean,
I've switched.
I love Arsenal as much as I love Nashville.
I've switched. I don't have a cannon on my chest or anything like that.
Yeah.
I hadn't quite put all of my eggs in that basket. Really, I mean, it was the same way for me with a lot of sports watching. I've broken up with American football. I stopped watching football about 6-7 years ago. It's the head trauma stuff, and it's just like, look, I'm not gonna put my eyes on this anymore. But it was this way also for me with American football. I didn't care who was on. I just wanted to see the game.
Yeah.
I will just watch the game to just say, it's third down.
Yeah,
and I'm the same. I'm
the
same way. And I'm the same way with soccer. It's like I'm watching Liga MX. I'm watching the Italian league. I don't really even care what team it's on. I just need. It's like, tell me what the story. Tell me how the season's going for this team.
And you're that way.
Got
now.
it. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been that way with forever. But it used to be that way with football. It's like, I don't care if it's Wyoming playing North Dakota. I'm watching.
Yeah. Right.
And so I just love the game. And in some ways, Arsenal was just easy uptake, and they had likable players. And I still think that I'm proper Arsenal, or at the very least doing my best as an American can be. But man, this team is just so compelling.
I love that, and I'm not against it. It has to happen organically, though.
Sure.
I can't fake it. I love Nashville. I love it. Watch every game. Season ticket holder. But there's something that hasn't. I don't know that if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible to have two different loves at once.
So I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. So I have one question that might help with this. Is that how many games have you seen at Stamford Bridge?
Oh, 7 now.
Okay. So you've seen more NSC games this season.
Absolutely. In one season, I've seen more.
It was in Titan Stadium. It was at LP Field.
Yeah.
And like all of the stuff around there is like,
I think
they're Titan stuff and things like that. I wonder if at the new field, at that Fairgrounds field, whether or not things will be a little bit different.
We'll
right?
see.
We'll kindle that love in the way that chocolate dipped strawberries does.
This true story. I got divorced 3 years ago, and when I got divorced, my realtor said, "What are you looking to buy?" And I said, "I want something near the new soccer stadium before it gets." I mean, this is even before they had a contract. So I bought in Wedgwood, Houston, so I could walk. I mean, Listen, I love soccer. I love Nashville.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm not. Again, I don't need. It's not hard. Nobody has to do a full court press on me. I'm ready.
You're going right.
I'm ready. I'm.
Right.
My buddy Andy and I got season tickets at the club level because we.
Oh my gosh!
We want this to be everything. So
okay.
I'm there. Moved there for that reason.
Okay.
Solid fan.
Okay.
Just don't lose sleep over them yet.
So, right. So not over like whether or not we're keeping Jandra Cadiz or whether or not nothing about that.
I'll engage in those discussions.
Not worried about the penalties and need to practice for those next time. Like that Sunday night rule was over.
They have practice penalties.
I'm joking about that.
I know that.
They're professional athletes. Of course they practice penalties.
I'm saying this for social media purposes.
Yeah. Of course they practice penalties. What are you talking about? So that was a fluky game, but it was heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking, and I've never seen it before. I've never seen a team
seen
ever
4 misses.
Yes.
Seen 3 misses. We saw that in the European Championship final.
Yeah. But I saw a couple of people trying to say, "Oh, this happens all the time." It doesn't.
Not all the time. Not in a major league.
So it was that was a bad mark, but that just gives us more to work on for next year, and I feel comfortable that we're going to be back in the playoffs. We're going to have multiple choices to do this. But this team is solid. He's going to make refinements. We're going to make roster moves that are going to make it even better next year. So
playing in the West too, and so
that part worries me.
So it's a little bit of more travel. So I think that I think that taking New England off, taking Philadelphia off of our playlist maybe is for the best for us. Taking Orlando off, that's a team that I feel like has just got our number.
But they don't.
We beat them 3-1 at home.
I know, and we drew the other times. New England didn't beat us.
Right, that's right. We beat them here and we tied them away.
Yeah, right. So I mean, those are the teams we don't need to get rid of. Yeah. I'm worried next year.
We need to not play Toronto. Is that
no? But here's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the fact that we're going to be playing the first 6 games on the road.
Yeah.
You set a tone. That doesn't mean the rest of the season's going to be like that, but I'm worried about the tone we set going on the road. That much travel on the road for 6 games. I mean, what's the statistic being on? I mean, a home game gives you a half of a goal or something like that.
I think that there's a distinct advantage.
Yeah, right.
And
when in soccer in general, and half a goal, since scoring is so low, is a big advantage. So.
Yeah, and you go to a place like Seattle, you go to a place like Portland, you go to a place like LAFC. Those are places with distinct advantages. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. So, as a fan, I think the West will be fun, but I'm more likely to travel to some of those cities to watch
really?
games. Yeah, because most of the East Coast cities you end up at for some reason or another. If you travel.
I see. Got it.
There's some of those places I haven't got to very often. I've been out to LAFC a couple of times. I'm trying to collect all the MLS stadiums slowly. So.
Nice.
You're doing the same thing, aren't you?
I go to a lot of the games. The family makes it a little bit harder to travel and things like that. You know how that goes.
I'm not saying you should get divorced for this reason, but it does make travel.
Hey, it makes it easier.
It makes it easier.
There is one perk. Right, exactly. So you are writing a book on soccer. So tell me about
right. So this grew out of in effect, this grew out of a class. So the book is called Neoliberalism's Pitch, and it's about sort of the discourses around soccer and the sort of politics around soccer. So I'll just give you. I'm not going to go off and on about this for a long time, but I'll give you a sense of the structure. Right. So there's a chapter about hooligan memoirs, and it traces out how former hooligans talk about how their lives developed through hooliganism and into the present, right? And it really does become these discourses of transition, on their own from addiction to self-fulfillment and entrepreneurship and doing something in the world that's productive. They're really interesting. There was a cottage industry, so there's 50, 60 of those books.
Okay.
In London. So chapter about the women's team, the equal pay arguments, chapter about the integration of Black Lives Matter across the globe in soccer, chapter about sort of focuses on Robbie Rogers coming out, Justin Fashiono his coming out in the 90s in the Premier League, and then sort of gay male players and how they sort of come out and what it means in soccer. And there's a chapter about the popularity of Mexican soccer in the United States and how hidden that popularity really. I mean, the ratings are still way better than MLS
really
ratings,
high,
but we don't know it. I mean, we just, you know what I mean? We do know it, but we don't because we don't.
That's exactly it.
A lot of us don't see it. So anyway, it's all about sort of the culture around soccer and less about, it's not about players or tactics again. It's more about sort of the culture around soccer and what we can learn from it. So was on leave last year, like you are this year.
Hey,
I know.
Sabbaticals are great. If anyone offers you one,
it
take
is.
it.
I've got a lot of writing done, so anyway, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So I'm excited about that.
And so you'll be shopping that to a press pretty soon then?
Yes. And I just want to say this is it's a wonderful thing when you can take your job and then take your passion. And I do think of soccer as my great. I have other passions, but this is my great passion in life, right? And to be able to do something with that, even ancillary, in my job is a great gift, right? Is a great gift.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing and continuing to teach that class. Are you going to be, is the plan that's going to come back? I guess it won't be next year because you're going to be on leave.
No. Lutz will be on leave next year. I was on leave last year.
Oh, okay. Lutz is on leave
and
next
so
year.
I'm going to teach it by myself next year.
Okay.
And it's sort of great because it's cross-listed, but I get to tell everybody I'm teaching a German course. I don't speak a word of German, but it's in the German. So continue teaching that. It's of course, and this has nothing to do with us. So I say this without saying we're so good. I think the topic lends itself to a lot of people being interested. So we have 100 students. We had like a 200 on the wait list or something like that. So so I think there's a big demand for it. So why not teach it? I think we're all learning something from it and all that. Right?
That's fantastic. And so is the possibility of international travel opening back up?
So
those,
as long as
you have to kind of have a
listen. As long as the virus does not, as long as COVID or any of these variants don't shut us down again, we're planning on a trip this March to go back.
Hey.
I will say this to anybody who's listening: if you get a chance to go to the National Football Museum in Manchester, amazing experience. It's an amazing experience. It's great. It really is. I don't know if you've been or not.
I have not been.
It's friggin'. I went last time. I can't wait to go back to because next, I'll have my eyes open a little bit better now about what I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, John, I think was that all that we wanted to talk about?
No, if you don't mind, I'm going to say one thing.
Okay.
Because I put this on Facebook this weekend, and I think this is worth noting. This was talked about, but I think this is really worth noting. Last weekend, Chelsea and Arsenal were in the FA Cup, the women's teams. Mm-hmm. Chelsea wins. That's important to me. That made me happy, but that's not important to what I'm saying right now. It was made a big deal was made in the press about this being the game taking place on the 100th anniversary, the exact 100th anniversary of when the FA had banned women from playing on FA pitches and from FA referees playing. So it was significant. It was 100 years later, but I think the bigger point to take from this was that game was played at Wembley this weekend, had 40,000 people there. The record for a women's game in London is 53, and it was set in 1920. And when I think about, wow, if there had not been a ban for 50 years, where would that game be now? I think that's worth noting. I think it's something worth talking about, thinking about, and I hope that people who love soccer also find ways to support the women's game around. Not only is it popular in the U.S., but it's a great game, right? And so globally, I'd like to see that sort of enhanced as well. So I'll shut up, but I wanted to throw that little.
That is an important piece of information, and
for us to reflect. Wouldn't it be great if Nashville at some point has a women's team?
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Yeah,
that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it would be.
Man.
I hope you're listening. Whoever. People with money.
Yeah, there's a great soccer pitch
People
about
with
to be in
money.
Nashville.
People with money.
All right,
Okay.
NSC Fan TV. Thanks, John.
All right, thank you. It's great.